We ask for the guidance and wisdom of the ancestors who went before us, especially on this fantastic sunny day, and those whose lives were lost in the Middle Passage as we commune weekly in this book club of Yurugu. And particularly, we ask that the ancestors hold and glue us in our book club study. As we pour libations, please keep in mind, ancestors, that you feel embody the following principles, and also ancestors who guide you in your path on this earth as we move forward. As we pour libations, the response is Ashe, or so be it. So we'll now pour the libations for all who dared to define, defend, and develop our interest as people. We say
Ashe.
For our ancestral land, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
For our people then and now, we say Ashe. For our children and those yet unborn, we say Ashe. For Kawaida, Nguzo Saba, and Ma'at, we pour and say Ashe.
Ashe.
For the systems of views and values which give identity and purpose to our lives, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
For the new world we struggle to build, and for the continuing struggle to reconstruct and reconnect our history and humanity in our own image and words according to our needs, we say Ashe. We ask then that the ancestors drink heartily and they quench their thirst. We say to the ancestors, Ashe.
Ashe.
Monikasa, it is finished, it is done. Ashe.
Ashe.
Can I just add something at the end of the libations? Eugene and I were watching, I don't know if any of you on the call, well, I know Ra does, if you know of Professor James Small, is it James Small? Mm-hmm. James Small. And we were looking at a video today, and he said, to build the African family, every family should spend at least 2 hours a week, minimally 2 hours a week, teaching and sharing African history, whether it be a movie, reading a book, telling a story, attending ACHA, Veronica, as you walked in so nicely. But 2 hours a week minimally, which is what we actually do at ACHA, goes greatly towards the rebuilding of African families again. And that's because we are teaching them the history of where they came from to allow them to move forward to where they're going to go. It was a powerful video. Simple, stupid, keep it simple, stupid. But he said, if you just practice that at least once a week, preferably more than that, you would be able to move forward on that continuum. So I just wanted to share that with those of us who have families and those who don't have families and those who plan to have families. Keep that in mind as we move forward. Ashe.
Ashe.
Okay, that's better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're matching.
Let me add that one of the things about what Dr. James Small mentioned is those type of teachings gives, when you know who you are, there's no way somebody could tell you otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. And so for our kids, if we don't tell them the truth, somebody's gonna for their benefit, somebody's gonna tell them gonna tell them who they are, and it's not gonna be beneficial for our children. Mm-hmm. And so I think, like, I came from a background where I was going to a performing arts school, which was Afro-Caribbean based. And it was founded by a famous jazz musician, God rest his soul, Jackie McLean. I mean, this is a man, he showed us he was a drug addict actually, and he got cleaned, and he became the chairman for UHART, the University of Hartford School of Music. And they taught us anything that they knew. And this is one of the foundations that had me one, I searched for and found it, and also it provided a safe haven for me as a child to develop my self identity in a very African centered way. And it helped when I went, um, when I was dealing with problems and trying to transition from the problems that I had at home and like really deal with some turmoil to even when I went to the university. And I realized I had an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And the advantage was that I knew who I was. And when I told people who I was, even like white folks, they were like, like it became like a even playing field. And in a university, when you could tell the truths, the professors are even afraid to challenge you after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it gives us a sense of power. Now the
Mm-hmm.
downfall is once you have this thing is where is the home that you're gonna reside in? And this is where we just can't be individualistic in our teachings. We need to build a community because the
But
kids
that's why
need,
the family. That's why we
yeah, the
need to build
kids
a
need
family.
somebody to marry, right?
Mm-hmm.
The kid needs somebody like-minded to marry. And
Mm-hmm.
in some ways, this is why communities used to practice. Too bad we're gonna choose your husband or your wife for you
Mm-hmm.
because it was based on trying to maintain a value system. It wasn't that, oh, the free of love. And also we can't take the Wazunga approach. You know, they were more using it as a control mechanism. We were like trying to maintain the cultural integrity of the community. And so your parents, because they had your best interest, which most parents don't nowadays.
Sometimes.
Most parents, like I said, most parents don't nowadays, is that they back in those days they had your interests, your brothers and your uncles and all that had your
Mm-hmm.
interests.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had to go meet up with them if you wanted one of their women, or if you were a male, you had to go meet up with the one who you want to marry, their family. And so it was something structural, and we frowned upon it. Why? Because we were told that's, oh, you don't have free to choose love. Love come afterwards. Duty, responsibility is the main thing that we need to be focusing on. Because I could love anyone who's doing the work. Like it's like you admire the person, so it's easy to fall in love with them. You know,
So
and so go ahead, go ahead.
no, no. So I was just going to say, you said when you went to university, it was like an even playing field. But I think even before university, I know that there's an example that my daughter gave when she was in grade, what, 5 or
Well,
6
I,
or
I
something
said it
like that.
levels the playing field, but
Yeah,
remember I said I had an advantage.
right. But I
I had
think
an
but you
advantage.
start the formative years for the child are important to actually establish these kind of this knowledge as well. And I just referred to the example that we were given when at school they were learning about pioneers. And when you learn about pioneers in Canada, you think of white people, right? And so I remember, because Laquan was already at ACHA, she said to her teacher, but weren't the escapes in childhood innocence, weren't the escaped slaves pioneers? Because if you look at the definition of what pioneers
No,
are, they fitted into it.
what's funny is that Africans, Afrocentric, Afrocentricity don't look at it like that. We weren't looking at it like, what our pioneers were? Our ancestors.
Well, no, that's
So
exactly, yeah, yeah.
we didn't look at it as pioneers. That's like an egocentric, Eurocentric thing. Like,
As a
like,
child, the comparisons with the definition was similar in her mind, right?
oh
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm
she
talking
trying
about
to see black and white. So she's going,
yeah.
but we're learning about enslaved people who escaped to Canada, and they sort of did the same thing that the pioneers did. So why aren't they called pioneers? And the teacher said, no, they're not. And in her mind, it's like, well, they're doing the same thing. So why aren't they pioneers? I mean, that could be a whole dissertation by itself. But in her mind, it was
or a sentence, or a sentence. Well, because they're not white. Because they're not white. That's it.
Yeah.
This is true. And that's exactly because in the books it doesn't talk about that. It just talks about pioneers as being this and this and this. So it was interesting. It was very interesting.
Well, I like that you actually said these things, because it begins with the section.
Hang on a sec. We got to mute.
Well, Linda's was talking about in terms of and I want to keep this subject going, because this is dealing with the section that we're actually going to be dealing with in the book. Page 248, the conqueror expansionism. Go ahead, Linda's. Let's continue.
No, just saying, no, perfect. I knew we were going to section page 4248, so I thought I would make the segue into it, which I have done. Now the
why are you lying? Why are you lying? That's not even a white lie. Go ahead, since you started. And you okay?
Me, since I started. Oh my gosh! Now I'm in trouble.
You're the co-host. You're the co-host.
Right. Okay. So I would like to bring everybody's attention. You know, I like to start by reading, right? Hey, Veronica.
Yeah.
So the second paragraph, the exercise. We don't have our reader here yet. Okay, I suppose I'll have to do it. The exercise of this power. We're talking about the conqueror, expansionism in the European Utomoroho, which Europeans attribute to themselves and which they continuously seek, is manifested in the ability, no, the mandate, to conquer everything they find. And this is a theme we're gonna be repeating over and over again if we haven't done it already. The assessment of themselves, which includes their birthright to conquer, not only that with which they happen to come in contact, but that which they seek, new lands, nature, people. This activity of conquering is sanctioned by the European Utomoroho that provides a kind of moral justification for it. And they go on to say that it can be traced back to the Indo-European heritage of the culture and the fact that a lot of what they culture is with aggressive tendencies, and they define it as progressive energy. So the destruction of the characteristic helps to determine, destructiveness becomes reconstruction of the world in the conquering self-image. So they destroy to rebuild in their own image. It's what it seems to be saying. And they go on to talk about modern day, well, 1974 modern day, how it just continues over the ages with Ronald Reagan in 1988, Richard Nixon in 1974, Bush in 1990. I would like to add Trump in 2020.
Well, hold on, because in some ways that's a distortion. All the presidents, all these presidents
all of them
are part of this.
Yeah.
Trump is just a blip.
Oh, yeah.
Trump hasn't really changed anything.
Added to.
This is just the same. He just continued the same process. Oh, she muted her mic. So they talk here about the Catholic with the Crusades, the Romans, you know, and on and on. They continue. They also mentioned the Aryans.
Yep, we're back.
Okay.
Yep. So I mean, those themes keep coming up over and over again. I'll leave it to somebody else, but I had underlined something on page 250 about what self-pride is.
Yeah.
Because they went into great detail about that, but I'll let somebody else have a weigh in on that one. Oops.
Anybody? Remember, I asked everybody to have questions or write your thoughts down as we keep reading. Anybody?
Well, you mentioned page 250, and on that page, the area that really stood out for me was the second paragraph where she was talking about this self-image as the conqueror of all imagined is manifested in the desire to spread themselves over all they see. And this is very consistent with what we've been hearing, where we've been going, all the examples that they're given prior to this. In this way, what they control becomes an extension of themselves. And as we continue to read on in the chapter, we see that this definitely fits in with that. Now I'm understanding better about the Asili and how the Utummaroho really does the nature of it. Every single thing that was described here gives you a better understanding of how they were able to develop the whole imagery for themselves, how they could really um, believe what they're saying because it's reinforced. And in order to maintain their asili, they have to have that power and that image of themselves as superior. Yeah,
So,
that was it.
well, the only thing is, I don't. It is there a Sealy that causes this, so it's not a maintenance of the Sealy. It's the because they have this Sealy is why they do this.
Mhm.
And what happens is interesting because every new event that they experience, they tend to do this. They warp the truth, and you see it all over the place. You can even see it in the news recent with the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Mhm.
And every time Palestinians are like, as more and more they take more land, Israel still have the right to protect themselves. But the Palestine when the you ask people, well, does the Palestinians have a right to protect themselves? It's like, no, they can't. So it's
Mhm.
completely one-sided.
Mhm.
And this is part, like, understand we're talking about the people who we mentioned before, the Jews who created this nationalism and this dichotomy where they are the chosen people and everybody else is beneath them, right? And so we see that occurring in today's times, and it continues on, for everything they want, you know everything they want to, they'll justify it.
Mhm.
So interestingly, that leads us right into the next section, world savior, Judaism and Christianity.
Mhm.
Ra's shaking his head. He's going, this girl is just wanting to speed this thing up.
No. What I'm shaking my head is this is always the case. Like, I'm tired. Like, in some ways, I'm actually tired of this, right?
No, but I've got notes. I've got notes on the next page that exactly talks about what you're talking about, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not saying
Go
it
ahead.
to annoy you, Ra. I'm saying it because
No,
that's
no, 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 no. I'm not.
coming up. Yeah.
I'm not even taking it like that. I am taking this like this is always happening in the world, and it's like I'm tired of this.
Mhm.
I want, and it's an artificial world, really. This United Cage of America is a facade, right? And
United
and we
States.
and we buy into it. Like, basically, we're discussing like prisoners in Canada with prisoners in America, and we're having this that there's a facade, this appearance of freedom, this
Yeah.
appearance of owning property or whatever, but don't pay. We had this discussion earlier. Don't pay your taxes and see what the government gonna do.
Mhm.
You know, if you go to Morocco, you don't pay. You don't have to pay taxes to own your land. Why we gotta pay taxes here for land ownership and property ownership? And so we have to educate our children to know exactly what is going on, because you're not buying free. You're not free. You're not that mortgage you paying for your house. It's really not yours. Nobody really owns stuff. And like we were talking with Sunshine, the difference between China and Canada is the Chinese know that the government owns everything, and the Canadians don't know that the government owns everything, right? Same in America, right? That's the difference.
Yeah.
In China, I rather deal with China. I rather deal with a place where people know what's up. And you know, growing up in the hood, right? We know the head honcho in the hood. You better respect that, right? And as long as he's cool and can maintain power, as long as he ain't causing that much trouble. This is how it is in Puerto Rico. You know, there be like these big gangsters, and they control sections, and you can be in that section as long as you know you ain't trying to rock the boat.
Yeah.
And if you in the United States, this appearance of freedom doesn't really exist. Why Donald Trump got banned if we have freedom of speech? Are we being selective in the Western world? We try to preach freedom of speech, but say something about the Jews
Yep.
and see you ain't gonna be shut down. You know,
Truly.
and that's how it is now. They use freedom of speech to their benefit, right? So when we were in college, we complain about the racism that occurred, hate speech and stuff, and they're like, oh, but you know, freedom of speech, right? Now, in my university, I actually made the argument that the attorney general took and used it. I said we could limit freedom of speech in a institution of education because just like you can have sexual harassment in a workplace, you should be able to limit speech to create a conducive environment for other people to learn. So in an institution, just like a business, there's different rules. Freedom of speech is in a public, but in a private institutions and stuff like that, there has to be some check and balances because how your kids gonna learn if they're being called the N word like in their face all the time? That's freedom of speech.
Yeah.
They playing games. Nothing is making sense. And we tend to play the games right along. Now, what was the notes you were saying that you had for your savior?
Mm.
Not my savior. Um,
World savior.
so I
Well,
looked up.
it's
Sorry, go on.
interesting. Let me tell you something. It's interesting because even in Christianity, the manipulation of how they teach it, right? Christ is actually a title. So you supposed to be like when God, like Jesus would say, I think he said, Christ is in you, right? And so you supposed to be a Christ.
Christ-like.
No, Christ. That Christ like, no, that's the imitation. That's what the European would say, Christ like. You're
Mhm.
supposed to be a Christ. You're supposed to embody the same principles as Jesus. And so when you take
Jesus.
in the flesh, right, which is like in Catholicism, the flesh is that piece of bread. Bread is a symbol for knowledge. Hold on, let me mute this.
You did it. Okay.
I was okay.
So Christ is the bread and the blood, right? The bread is the knowledge, is a symbol for knowledge. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding, even in like a Christianity in beginning ain't gonna never understand the Christianity that exists now. And so this is why even with the in the book it explains the battle between the Christian and the Gnostics, because the Gnostics was looking at Christianity, they were more Africanized Christianity. And they resemble more African way of looking at Christ. And so studying, and a lot of the pastors know this history, but again, they follow protocol. And what's the protocol? What assembly is the protocol coming from? Some of them, when you look, you see a black Jesus, and you be like, oh, cool. This is at least they got some truth. But the others, like when you go to Ghana and Nigeria, and if you're European, you wear robes and grow a beard and say you Christ, you will literally get hundreds of people following you and praying to you.
Especially if you're blue-eyed.
Oh,
Oh my God.
All right, Linda. Let's see what if your notes talk about what I just said.
It's funny. We've got a Google Home, and I just said, especially if you got blue eyes, and the Google Home responded. I think it's been living with us way too long. So
That's why I got up. Google Home was acting crazy.
I know. I think that they're listening to us. So maybe this is a good. Apart from this podcast, we also have Google Home spreading the word. So let's keep it up.
No, Google Home is listening to the words.
you're right. You're right about that. Listening and recording.
Yeah. If we get some sirens outside the house, we'll know why.
Hey Trey, you got anything to add to this world savior thing?
The only thing I would really.
No, Trey. He's asking Trey.
Oh, Trey. Okay, sorry, Trey. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I speak just my personal experience, like reading the Bible and stuff like that. I feel like it's like I feel like it's a lot of the, like, how am I trying to say it? Like teachers are like, for me, I guess I'm just taking it personal because I'm a teacher. But teachers are the real problems, or the real like passers on of this assembly. Like when I read the book, like it's like any other book. You got this stuff that you can come out and learn something from, and then you got the stuff that, all right, well maybe I'll put that off to the side. But like, like I grew up in the church, so when you got the Sunday school teacher or the preacher, when they're saying it, like they're giving you like an interpretation of it. And like, so like, especially as a kid,
they give you a Eurocentric interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they do, they putting themselves into the story, and the people in the story looks like you.
And it's not like but even, and what I'm saying that in regards to teachers, because that's like as a teacher, like I don't teach like that, in the sense that like if I'm sitting up in front of the classroom and like you've only heard from me, then that's not education, because I didn't hear about your input, like, and I didn't weigh yours. Like I didn't hear what you had to say and then weigh it against mine, and then try to come to some collaboration on it. I guess it's really a one-way street in regards to that, like, I don't know, handing off of knowledge or something like that. But like I said, that's a teacher's thing. Like if you was to give the kid the book, and then the kid, like, naturally, if you teach a kid how to read, like he's going to ask questions, you know what I'm saying? Like basic, obvious questions.
Well, what happened is, first of all, we don't have that many teachers that are conscientious and self-aware.
And I feel like they do, or whoever has this assembly, I feel like that's like one reason why
that assembly is being promoted. It's the establishment. So you could just be robotic and still be following that assembly. That assembly, we follow that assembly because it's already embedded, right? In some ways, where whenever you educate your children outside of the curriculum that is being pushed out there, remember, it's a westernized curriculum, and those kids spend more time with teachers than with their parents, because you're a slave in the field. even though you're not getting beaten, but it's like the Willie Lynch letter. You indoctrinate people
Yep.
so much to the point where it becomes self-refueling. The
Yeah.
parents gets the kids ready for the indoctrination. We surrender automatically by by sending our kids out to school. We do a disharm. I mean, we do a harm. We harm children because we haven't decided to establish our own schools.
And I think if parents realized one of the
They do.
benefits,
They do.
of
Let's not
COVID,
let's
no, I'm talking about COVID though, is the thing with the virtual teaching. I know people have a really big thing about it, but
yeah.
the benefit of it is, well, you can, if you see the positive side of it and you make use of the positive side, parents are now having to spend a lot more time with their children. If they can see that that is a plus, they know what to do with that extra time, as opposed to complaining, oh, I want my kid to go to school because I don't have time for myself and blah, blah, blah. You actually have, this is a gift to some parents who are aware of it, that they now can spend more time with their children and give them the correct information or the more correct information, as opposed to complaining bitterly
And
about the
understand
fact.
that's a
But they
small
have to have the information to give, though. That's the
that's a
problem.
small portion, because we really don't want to, like, even when we broke up the family in the United States, family struck when they forced both parents having to work, right? Where they didn't, instead of raising the salaries with inflation, now we need two incomes in the house. And we looked at it as progress, right? Now you surrendering your kid to a babysitter in the most important years of their lives, which is baby up until 3.
Mhm.
Then after that, you're sending him off to your enemy school.
Mhm.
So how what else you expect to happen?
You,
You
you
know,
want
and
one of the things that I notice is that more because of the virtual experience, there are more parents hearing exactly how the teachers are teaching their children,
Mhm.
and they're actually questioning the information, the approaches you're using.
well, a lot of parents been in the United States been liking, and there's actual
Mhm.
independent schools. I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys
I
know about
I
a young
visited
man
some.
named Q Butter from New York.
I went to schools in Detroit. I visited some independent schools in Detroit.
Yeah.
There's
And
there's
That's
this young brother named
yeah.
Q Butter. He's a rapper actually,
Malik, I know.
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
he actually started a school with his kids first.
Mhm.
Then I mean, he actually had some criticism about how Umar is doing, because he started, from home to a building, and now he's teaching online because it allowed him, since he already had the curriculum, he was able to transfer and teach a lot more Black kids online.
Mhm.
And he teaches from a perspective like what he was saying. I heard him talk. He said they don't even say, when they teach science, they don't teach ohm,
Mhm.
right? They ohm, when you say like 2 ohms, 4 ohms, 8 ohms,
Mhm.
he says that's the white mean, that's them defining stuff. So instead of naming it after, quote unquote, who discovered resistance, right, in a circuit, right, he says they call it resistance. He said in China they call it resistance. They don't call it ohms. They
Mhm.
just say resistance. And here we say ohms. So even in the most, in places where we think is small, it's actually big.
Yeah.
And even though Willie Lynch letter may not be a real thing,
Mhm.
it's very profound,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you know. And we got to go back into the Savior and the Christianity. Well, every time, we we have for integration destroyed a lot of Black businesses. You know, we chose, ooh, my wife is right. They're smoking, smell like wet cigarettes. But during integration, we gave up businesses instead of going to the Black store where they had buses, Black bus owners, they had appliance stores and everything. And what they did is they wanted to go to the white people's store,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
and we
I was
don't
reading, I
we
was
don't
reading
deal with
some
that.
stuff about that. Back in this, this book was talking about the only businesses that the Blacks seemed to hold on to was the um, undertaking business, and that's kind of where that's the one business that they ended up with after closing down most of their businesses during the depression.
And
Depression hit. Yeah.
it makes sense.
So yeah,
That's what's terrible.
yeah.
What is the
It makes
undertaking business?
diabolical sense because that's how it was structured to happen.
Sunshine?
Yeah.
What is that in
That was back in the days of the
undertaking
depression.
No, she says Undertaker is the guy who take care of the deceased. He, you
Funeral
know,
home.
makes it
Funeral home,
presentable.
Funeral
Yeah,
home, funeral directed. Mhm.
yeah.
And it's interesting, in Canada, we have two
Thank you.
Black owned funeral homes, which is like the
Okay.
first. And funeral homes is big business. And maybe if anybody's looking for a business career, to anybody out there, funeral business is very lucrative because they're always dying to get to see you. Very bad joke, but it's true. The most profound businesses that will definitely.
Let's hear your notes instead.
Yeah. That piece was free. That was free information.
That is corny.
All right.
That was
So one of the things that struck me. Sorry.
I said I like that wordplay. That was nice. That was nice.
So one of the things that got me with the first page of The World Savior was the fact that halfway down the third paragraph, it talks about altruism, that we under the mask, the facade that Christianity is about selfless concern for others, altruism. But it really isn't. It's not selfless, and it definitely isn't concern for others. And then the other piece of it was Christianity was the way that Christianity works. They are the world conqueror, and they are the ones that are using the religious formulations to increase their development as Europeans. Judaism did, if I understand it correctly, Judaism wasn't looking to save everybody. They were just looking to save that select group of people. But the Christianity piece is what went and conquered supposedly the rest of the world. But Judaism wasn't that. But
she argues that when you talk about chosen people, that limits your ability to expand. When you change that idea and say, oh, believe in what we say and you'll be saved, that allows for the expansion.
Yeah. And the missionaries were very good at that. Actually, it's interesting story. I went to Ghana and I collected money. We collected clothes. The church that I go to, let me finish, don't say a word. They have somebody who knits, and they knitted babies' hats, babies' mittens for the babies that were in intensive care, or the preemies, right? And only because people gave me money to go do stuff in Ghana with it. They sent me the mittens and the hats and everything else for the preemies. I never suggested for 1 minute that I was going on behalf of the church. People in the church supported me. I get to Ghana and my good friend sends me an email telling me the priest wants to know how the word mission never came up in my conversations. how is the missionary work going in Ghana? I go, when did this become a missionary thing? But they automatically assume that's what I was going, and I'm going, you know, that really struck me because it was, I did it on my own accord to do something in Ghana for people that were like me. I never once mentioned it as being a church related visit.
Well, they look at it as that universality that the books talk about, how you were doing the same work that they did and they tied it together. They the one who filled in the blanks.
Yeah.
So it, you know, implicitly they still get credit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And implicitly
Yeah.
we give them credit. Right? We'll be like, oh, I mean, even, you know, I don't want to sound like the guy who want to bust everybody's bubble, but
why don't you?
it is terrible. It is terrible what's going on, you know, because this should not have no compromise. Any compromise.
You know, it's me, right? So I made sure to bust that bubble and let everybody know it wasn't a mission.
You know,
and thank you for your donations to my trip. But it was definitely not a mission. And
you know, I had a discussion with a friend of mine, right? And we were talking about spirituality. And we were like, well, really, spirituality is a European term, right? We've never divided. Life automatically was spiritual, was everything we did was all together, scientific, spiritual. We didn't create dichotomies. So a lot of these, even in terms of our own trouble and understanding these things, is because they should not be understood. A lot of like, some of the stuff that they are doing should not be understood.
It's just made up concepts. They just made up these concepts, and now
it's amazing because when you really study and you look at the people, the influencers, for example, Einstein. There was one scientist, he said, only Einstein and I understand what Einstein is talking about, right? And that is true because who's gonna understand his nonsense? And if you say that, it's like, oh my God, you blasphemy.
Yeah.
Or if you talk about Gandhi, blasphemy. Or if you even say Mandela, I don't even agree with Mandela. Blasphemy. Because one of the things, like, and I say, and this is my opinion, you know, and Mandela should have changed the names. He should not be raising the oppressor hand with him. And there's no excuse for those type of things. We are afraid. We have adopted the fear of death that the Europeans have.
Yeah, that's what's
somebody said
and
that.
Garvey, freedom or death. Yeah. That was the Haiti, freedom or death.
You're gonna die anyway, right?
The Tainos were throwing themselves over the cliff before they even allowed to be enslaved. And this fear, I even hate that I have that fear. And so I try to work on it because it's like freedom or death. And it's compromising. And compromising, since when compromise became a good term? Name one compromise that is good. There's no compromise. There's no compromise.
Notice I didn't say any words. I just did the actions.
Oh, I wasn't even. I'm saying there's no compromise.
Especially the last few weeks, trust me.
Hold on. You thought I was saying there's no compromise because of what you was doing. I asked the question, and I just saying that there is no compromise. And you're like
That's a
doing,
rhetorical question, not requiring a response because we all understand.
uh,
I
and
want to
so
read something. I want to read something.
go ahead.
Page 52, 52. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph. So she's talking about, who's that writer? Who was it?
Which one?
Covell, Joel Covell. Whoever, I don't know. We don't even need to know who he is. But anyway, the point he makes is that Western saving, she did a example beforehand, trusteeship, something about trusteeship, which means that the Westerners feel that they have to, the idea of trusteeship gradually replace that of conversion. That's the progression from the Christian sealing. So the point he makes is that Western saving meant a making over of possession and destruction until what the world needs most is to be saved from the insatiable appetite and egotism of the European. The next paragraph is the one that we are wanting to go into. The European Utamoroho allows people to experience an intense ideology of cultural and racial supremacy as beneficence. I looked it up, meaning the welfare of others. I think this is the same train of thought, beneficence and altruism. This, in essence, is the message to be gleaned from an examination of the European self-image. Europeans do not merely commit atrocities against other peoples and then rationalize them in nationalistic expression. They seem to believe that they have the right and the obligation to think and act to make moral decisions for other peoples and therefore to commit such atrocities. As we have seen in chapter 1, the European Utamawazo allows them to believe this. The European Otomoroho is a unique ethnological phenomenon and accounts for the intensity of European / Euro-American cultural behavior. So, it's the repetition of what they are doing and continue to do to control, really, to exercise control over others.
Yeah. And what happens is they create the problem and then they become the solvers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a sense of grandizement, and because people are not, because the whole system has been restructured. Africans are not Africans. They're running a program of colonialism and neocolonialism, right? And so they have their chosen elites to run these plantation countries, right? And so what you see is they, the Wazunga created COVID and the Wazunga solve it, and they gain more power because they're the transfer of resources. People are losing their homes right now, and Wall Street is buying them to the level where now home prices are increasing in the United States, and people are not able to buy them because they're buying home left and right and renting them to make money. It is a weird dichotomy that they have here. And most people, they don't know that they're in a war. There's a humongous anti-African sentiment that exists, to the point where when I say I'm African, they be like, "What? Aren't you Latino?" Well, first of all, Puerto Ricans are not considered Latino in the United States. They're a separate group.
What they considered as being?
No, we're not considered Latino. They're Puerto Ricans. They're tying themselves to the that were Latino, but because we are U.S. citizens, they consider they're like, for instance, in Connecticut, they have a Puerto Rican / Latino Affairs Commission.
Okay. So
So
this is official you're talking about.
yes.
Okay. I thought you meant within the community.
Well, you even if you do like a thing, they'll say if you Puerto Rican and like when they do like government surveys and stuff like that.
Puerto Rico is a section.
But the whole concept of Latino is not even, we didn't create that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
There's there
Yeah.
and what's funny is there's even and look at how they compound it, right? Now the government is trying to call us Latinx.
Yeah.
Right? They did a study that only 3% of the quote unquote Latinos, so-called Latinos, even identify with Latinx. And we didn't create those terms.
Yeah. What is Latinx though?
More
Brother.
than one missing person.
I don't. I just asked him a question.
Latinx was created by the gay community to get rid of gender roles. In Spanish, when you speak Spanish, there's gender in the language.
In the language, yeah, I know that because I did Spanish in high school.
You know, and so they go, oh, Latinx, not really realizing that they're Xing themselves out because X means unknown. And actually, they actually did it purposely because they don't. But Latinx don't make any sense. Even if you're gonna speak Spanish, you're not gonna say Latino X. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But the concept of Latin
Latino
came
and
from the
Latina, right?
French. The French named South American Latin to try to persuade them to like favor France during the wars that were going on. And then the government of the United States went from Hispanic, which means owned by Portuguese and Spain, to then just like Oriental means, you know, like an object is Oriental. And then it became Latino, but none of us chose those things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a unifier because we didn't decide on those things. They're like, this is what you are. Okay, that's always like you're not like you accepted the Canadian title. You're not a freaking Canadian or from the UK.
Hey.
Or from Trinidad.
Hey.
Or from Jamaica. We're African. There's an anti-African sentiment.
Isn't that what James Small said today? He said, you may be living in a country, but you are still African. And that African runs through you. White, Chinese, Latina, Latinx, Latino. Africa runs through everybody. Get with it.
No, but we're making this, we're actually creating a distinction here, right?
No,
because
people though.
Black people.
He didn't say Chinese or anything like that.
Yeah, he did.
No, he didn't
watch
say
that video again.
No, he didn't say Chinese.
He said they all derived from us, but he didn't call them. He didn't say call them Africans.
Yeah.
Play on words. Okay, all right.
But also, in terms of the consciousness of it, right? It's just like, you know, they say the devil separates. It is the separation of things where we tend to lose the meaning of things. And so what they do is they come and they dabble within the separation. They divided the continent.
Two words come to mind, Ra.
Divide and conquer.
No, page 254. The grand organizers. Europeans above all see themselves.
No, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
And forges from chaos. Forges order from chaos, supposedly.
Well, I mean, they define chaos. So example, when they divided the continent, you had groups that were left in one continent and the other, and they all are in the same ethnic group. So what? They got to look at themselves different now, nationalistically.
Mm-hmm. You know, And the other word that they mentioned was peacemaker towards the end. But I have a question though. I have a question. Maybe I'm missing something, but on that page 254, the second to last paragraph talks about the British Niger expedition.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up. I don't know if people know what that is. I looked it up to get a sense of why at this point she put that in there as an example. So what was so important about that particular expedition? Because I'm sure there were others. So just so people know, if they don't know, it was a expedition in 1841 by missionaries from the church, and 3 steam vessels traveled to Nigeria. Many of the crew died from some disease, and the
Malaria.
the whole plan of the trip was to convert the people in Nigeria to Christianity. But because most of the crew died, the expedition was cut short. It never happened. So the significance of citing that particular expedition was what? Was that a big thing in the day that never happened, and it was?
No, well,
know.
they because of the sheer audacity that they could go anywhere, like realize
Right.
that they didn't truly conquer they took over Africa through the help of Africans, because they didn't have the ability to go deep into Africa. They didn't have the know-how. But she's using that as an example of how they think they can just do whatever they want, and nature pushes them back.
Okay, well, good for nature.
You know, and so it failed because of nature.
And on page 255, in her explanation, she also said, for Europeans, there are no lands that belong to others. All land and space, air and water belong to them. And as they bring order, they bring peace. I think that's what you were referring to.
Right, yeah.
Right? So I think right here, she's just reinforcing the whole idea of being the peacemakers, doing whatever they want to do, and giving them, titling themselves as our
Well,
savior.
well, they do the whole
Yeah.
they cause a problem and then they go and solve it.
So she's just, in this chapter, she's describing the different ways that they
Yeah,
look.
it's just the narrative is they come with quote unquote solutions, and the thing is they don't allow the people themselves. They don't. Okay, we're gonna help. How can we help you? And the people could determine. Okay, you can help us with this.
Or we don't need help. We're good as we are. They don't want to hear that though.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, Cuba is a sore, right? Because Cuba has been self-sufficient. Cuba embarrassed the hell out of the Western world, but being able to help people with COVID. And we're like, oh, we don't got enough money. What? At some point, we should not be making decisions based on money. Why are we not giving the vaccine, eliminating the patent and giving the vaccine for the Indians so they could, for India to knock down the whole thing before it becomes some super virus come and you think it can wipe out everybody. Because the more the virus, the more it spreads, the better it has to mutate.
Mutates, yeah.
And then you know, the next after that you got nationalism.
Whoa!
Identity.
Race and national identity.
And honestly, to be honest, I hate this section. I hate not the section, this whole chapter. Because I don't really want to be dealing with this. Is what I deal with all day.
So should we skip that bit and move on to the next one then? Because we know all about that.
Whole chapter. He's talking about the whole.
Well,
chapter.
hey, we can finish earlier if that's the case.
No, well, I mean, I'm not gonna be a dictator. You guys decide.
It's just I'm the savior. I'm just suggesting.
What? Well, let's see how you
have the
replace
I
the
have
link.
the Asili. I've been told that many times. Hey, we all have our own Asili.
No, but y'all,
recognize which one it
y'all,
is.
hold on, y'all people from the UK have a particular one, man. That
The section on that.
man, Africans from the UK, man, they come with some extra stuff, man. I
It's
mean,
all
if
stunk.
go ahead, like
No,
because
let somebody else. I
I
made notes, but I don't want to.
I want to be able to finish this and go to the next chapter.
Yeah. So somebody help us move it along. I could start.
Oh, you know what? Hey, Nyami, are you there, brother? Or are you still in the car?
I think he's having us on.
Nyami, do you hear me? Ubuntu. I think
He's probably, I don't know, he's probably driving.
He might be having a nap, you know.
the old man naps.
Yeah, one of those. All right.
All right. So
What were you going to ask Ubuntu? He might respond if you ask him the question or ask the question generally.
no, I mean, let's deal with this national identity before, Actually, how do I? Okay. Let's deal with this national identity. I mean, pretty much, there's been a. How many people are know about the history Germany and how they came about? Huh?
I know they referred to it here and they gave the progression: Germanic, English, medieval Europe, Christianity, the break from the Roman Catholic, all of that stuff. They built up the national identity from these different influences, talking about it as being progress. So I like the fact that they related all this stuff together, though, because you saw the process. But I don't know about the Germany. Is that the thing where they talk about the Aryan myth?
The Aryan.
Germanomania? Yeah.
Well, they're relatives, right? Like the English and the Germans are the same people, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
They and what happened is during the Renaissance period, the Germans were the last to they didn't read until 800 AD. And so they came later during the Renaissance period. And even us saying Renaissance period, this is
Exactly.
That's while they were having their dark age and Renaissance, whatever, like describing it this way, it does a disservice for our people.
Is that the same as medieval?
Medieval is another period that is how they label, how they separate these things, and they create this is why I'm totally against universal evolution, right? Like in regards to, oh, we were medieval dark age this time and now we're this high Renaissance period.
So is this where they mentioned Adolf Hitler, centuries later Adolf Hitler would follow in the same tradition, so this is where he got some of his beliefs from.
The Germans realized they were in trouble and they didn't have no colonies, and so they ramped their education program. And with power, with the idea of power, and was able, when you're smarter than your opponent, you can now create things and give you advantage, and that's what happened eventually. Where Germany had some of the best scientists in the world, but it was brute technology that they were creating, right? They weren't solving any problems. And so they became so well, like, during a particular time, they became, like in the 1600s, they became so well, so well organized that even the British was like, oh, we're part of the same family. And, they kind of looked at themselves as a group, even though they had their own separate, ideas.
That's what you're looking at where the German, that queen, is it Queen Victoria,
Yeah,
who had a German
her husband.
husband?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they kind of
And remember, a lot of the things that they did was based off of fear. Germany feared, like, oh, we better do this, or else we're gonna be left out.
Well, the other thing with history is a lot of those marriages that happened between the Europeans, in particular, I remember this from history. It was political to strengthen the bond and to make sure that they were able to have power over a certain realm. I do remember that being one of the clear things. Like, it was very important that they married, because a lot of the royal family in England the basis is German, but they're also married into other German families just to keep that.
Well, the European royalty are all related.
Yeah, they're all related, all of them.
And this is what it was so bad that it started to cause schizophrenia. They started having a bunch of potato heads and psychological, schizophrenia and a lot of crazy, their teeth. Why English got busted teeth and stuff.
Choose your words carefully, Rob. They may cut us off.
No, I'm saying this is on record. This is on record. So
potato.
I'm not quite understanding.
Oh no, I'm just saying.
Okay,
Veronica. Yeah, there was one of the things that I found was that to be German meant that you were linked to this whole concept of being related to God.
Purity.
Yeah. So
they do it now.
It was important because that meant you were chosen.
The Da Vinci Code, they're saying to the point where they're related to Jesus.
Jesus, yeah.
The royalty is related to Jesus.
I don't remember through the Da Vinci Code, but yeah, I heard.
And it's like this is where Christians really need to do some studying. Yeah. Because to get rid of the bad stuff, these like weird stuff that is going on, you could literally it would just help. It will help because Christianity is nothing but you trying to find a way to live better, and to have this weird stuff all around it that doesn't belong. There needs to be like a complete cleansing, and Christians need to take their beliefs back and quit being preached on, because there's a lot of resources out there that could be used for you to cleanse your church and actually do some real stuff where real development occurs, where real, even let's say if Christ doesn't exist, at least philosophically you can believe in that stuff. It's not so much, okay, the miracles didn't happen, okay, but the goodness of the philosophy that's being talked about, right? It could be.
Yeah, it could apply to anything. Really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have to be so literal with it. We can understand these things.
Which is, I think, you go right back to the African mystery systems where it wasn't all literal stuff. It was all connected stuff, and so they took the connectedness out of it and put.
I mean, it's the reason why we accepted the religion in the first place, because we can understand all this stuff.
We understand it. It's natural to us. It's in us.
Yeah. So nobody. People from Ifa tradition ain't trying to look like trying to convert people. They're just living.
Yeah. It's natural,
The wrong is when you start saying you're worshiping the devil, not realizing that you're worshiping a white Jesus, and your Bible and Revelation doesn't say that.
So there's a section on I don't want to read the whole thing, but there's a section on 258, beginning the third paragraph down, an African-centered interpretation of European cultural history. using the analytical tool of the Asili concept, demonstrates the centrality of racialist thought, of racial myth in the European ideology.
Yes.
It goes all the way down. The concept of racial superiority is inextricably entwined in the matrix of the European mythoform. And they actually talk later on about somebody who described himself as a racialist. I don't think it's this paragraph.
And well, it's almost nationalist too. Racialist
Yeah.
is almost like a
Yeah.
And,
But
and
then
this is. Go ahead.
no, but then further down, the next paragraph, the history of England, middle of this, the second to last paragraph. The history of England is the history of the European.
Blasphemy! You're committing blasphemy.
Blasphemy? Me? No,
Yeah,
I'm reading what she said.
Aren't you from England?
That's why it shocked me, Ra. But I like what it says at the end, so the history of England, because he interrupted me there, blasphemy, is the history of the European self-image, forcing itself into the consciousness of humanity. It also demonstrates the indispensable role of the historian. That's the bit that I wanted to make the segue about the history, right? In the process, and answers the question of why it was so important to first create the European myth of a secular, objective, and scientific history. Cultural myth had to be understood as historical fact. This is the problem that underlies most biblical interpretation. We won't go into that.
And hold on, let's go into it, because this is where if you actually study the history of even the people who have created this, and you really want to be Christian, then you actually could get a greater meaning.
Well,
during the history of the book being created, you could now have self-determination.
Yeah, if you really investigate and not just accept what's as they say, appearance is not the appearance. It's look at what's real and not what they want you to see.
And
right?
if I remember correctly, page 260 talks about Henry VIII. And if I remember correctly, Henry VIII that was fighting to have the Christian church be, that was the main religion, right? That was a big thing about Henry VIII. I seem to remember the church thing was all about him. And they sought religious independence from Rome around his time.
Well,
so
I mean,
the nationalism came in as well.
Well, also not just that. It's not, they wanted to sever that power, right? Because now they realize they created an institution where the head of, like, the Pope decides how to give the blessings to conquer lands. King James, I heard that he changed the Bible because he wanted to get divorced and remarry or something. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that they're willing to change the rules when it comes to them, but everybody else has to follow the rules.
Yeah, that's true.
This is in politics and in religion. Oh, we got to forgive him even though they raped tons of children.
And later on in that chapter,
what happened to the part about stoning somebody?
Yeah, that was all around that time.
A
lot of persecution, witches, and all that kind of stuff. But the role of the historian, as we all know, is very important as well, because we get their history, right?
Yeah.
So,
remember, most all these science, anthropology, psychology, was all created to support the Tamu Rojo. And it's like, imagine, like, the Asili is like, let's say you know that symbol where you get in Egypt where you have the sun disk and all the rays and the unks at the end. The Asili is this power and fear and aggressiveness that they have. Everything else stems from those things, right? And so we say, oh, but they're doing this because they're, ultimately it's power. oh, it's because of finances. No, money is a tool to be able to manipulate you.
Yeah.
Oh, I need money, but you need money to survive. Yes, because you're under this particular institution. But if you have pieces of land and you're not being taxed and you are able to live off the land, how much and you could build, especially like Eugene who could build furniture and stuff like that in the house and fix stuff up. What do you really need? And then, you know, if he was in Trinidad, he'll have a garden that will feed him every day.
He has a garden right now in Canada
I have my garden.
that will feed
I've
him
been
every
spending
day.
the last week putting my plants in.
No, I said all around because you can't do that
in the winter.
this climate, yo, because
Yeah,
it's you
it's
know
kind of hard. It is.
we want to go against the very nature, we go against Mother Nature and be like, no, we want to live in the cold where you need
So,
more resources. You need more resources. At least if you're in a warm climate, you don't need
Yeah, you don't
tons
need
of
additional
things.
stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I just want to be the Asili for the time checker, Asili.
I listen. We ain't talking about. You're
8:51.
not a. There's no checking of the time. You.
Well, I'm just putting the thought in people's heads, right? Okay. So okay.
We haven't. Remember, you said 2 hours.
Yes.
Did I?
We could
I
finish it
said
up.
2 hours?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought I said
That
5
James
o'clock.
Small. Right. Right.
Robert, help me, Robert. Don't agree.
And I mean, how far you want to go with this? Because
You know,
Actually,
the
quite a
mid,
ways from the end of the month.
you know what? We're always from the end.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
median self-image one, the next one though, we actually discussed a lot of that. We discussed quite a bit of that before. I just wanted to end, if nobody else has anything else to say, the last chapter, the last paragraph of page 265. Again, I know I have the British accent, but I'm just going to start with, as the British Empire spread to exploit more melanated people who could in no way claim Germanic heritage, the lines of race became more clearly attached to the broad cultural historical lines that separated Europe from the rest of the world. And the European self-image has always been based on the implicit perception of cultural or racial difference. The Utumoroho thrives on this difference because of the nature of this Utumoroho. The dialectical complement of the positive European self-image is a negative image of others. That keeps coming up all the time.
yes.
They are the good, we are the bad, they are the white, we are the black. You know,
Yeah,
they can
it's
only
always
compare
there.
themselves because they give us a negative image they give us a negative
Yeah, in order
so
for them
to
to
make them
feel,
look
yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
that just keeps coming up over and over again.
Negative image is the next chapter.
Right.
And then Linda, go to 276 and the theme of the
What?
European Tomorrow. Go ahead.
276.
Yeah.
What, you mean we're skipping all of
where
that?
bookmark was.
My bookmark was there, you know. The things
Where-
I have that marked. How did you know, Ra? I have that marked off as well.
Okay.
What, read it?
Oh,
The themes.
yeah.
The themes of the European Utumoroho are what is significant in this sampling of white nationalist literature. The European man, the conqueror, world savior, bearer of order, and most importantly of civilization, superior and therefore magnanimous in his effort to impose on them the benefits of his knowledge and talents. It doesn't matter for African peoples, for the rest of us, that is, whether Europeans say that their blessed state of civilization is transmitted racially, physically, or culturally. This is ultimately a very fine distinction. The consequences of blatant racialist theory may be even less damaging culturally, as they could logically lead to a non-interference separation type policy. On the other hand, ethnologically, the European Utumoroho is a subtle admixture of race, culture, and the ideological conceptions of civilization and progress.
You guys understand that though?
Yeah.
Robert.
that part there. Yeah.
This is a description of white nationalism, isn't it?
Was it's describing their method, their methodology.
The methodology,
It's
how they go
describing
about doing it.
how they're doing this.
Yeah.
It's describing the process.
Yeah. Do you want to
Remember,
finish
and
that?
they're
Do you want to
well.
finish that paragraph?
Actually,
That's it.
go to these various aspects of your
Down
Okay.
these various aspects.
Oh, okay. The white
These various
Oh,
aspects.
these various aspects of the European Utamoroho combine to form a self-image that externally supports European imperialistic behavior and internally or intraculturally supports extreme rationally fanatical scientism, a superficial and analytical aesthetic, and a severe lack of spirituality. Imperialism is supported by the scientists who construct theories by which the world is consumed, by intellectuals and academicians who
remember
use
that imperialism supports
yeah.
supported by scientists who construct.
Say it again for effect. Imperialism is supported by the scientists who construct theories by which the world is consumed, by intellectuals and academicians who use this knowledge as power, by missionaries, modern day crusaders, who seek only to impose their peace on the world, so they altruistically offer citizenship in their empire. Yeah.
And you can stop there, because basically we talked about this, and this is what I was saying, that even in, I know some people may think when I talk about science, I may be veering off, but there, she's stating it.
We're going through it right now with COVID.
That's one. There's many others.
Yeah, there's many others.
Right? Like how we eating.
Oh yeah.
Right? The food we eat, what we considered important. As we celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day, we separate those two instead of saying, let's celebrate Family Day.
Yeah, every day.
It's just the tip of the iceberg on those days, but
and then Linda said, "Oh, but it gives us a reason to be together." I'm like,
yes,
that's not, you're together because you're together. That's not the reason.
But we can use
and the separation. Hold on, and the separation is caused. The separation is caused by the Westernization, right? This overworked, underpaid, this whole jumping. You're a hamster, and I'm not gonna say the rest, but you're a hamster in this wheel.
It's only a word. We can use it how we choose to use it.
No, you cannot. You can recreate. You can create a word and use it the way you use it, but we're dealing with a term, a concept that already has its concrete meanings. So you can create a word, like this is why she said asili, and then we could talk about the asili. Now, where in Europe, in the European construct, you have a concept like the asili. I want to hear that.
You have a description, but not a word. Yeah.
Like, I mean, we could describe anything, but the concept is like a whole analysis, a breakdown of something. We don't. And so, I mean, we're too old to not try to redefine some of these things. We're adults, man. Like, we should be doing this as soon as we turn 18 and go to college and all that. We're like, hold on. Like, I used to question people all the time about certain words. And they'll say, oh, but the Webster Dictionary. I say, listen, are we in a university? We create concepts here. But one of the things is, if you don't have the complexion for the protection, you're not heard. You're not considered smart. Why are you rattling the bowl? Why are you being attacked? Why are you so aggressive? No, you're the aggressive. You're destroying the planet. You're killing people. Cops are scared of, like, they need a cop that says, oh, they were afraid, should lose their job. Or what we should do is firemen seem to be very brave because they run into fire. So we should switch. If you're afraid, listen, it appears that these firemen are brave because they run into fire. I respect that. So let's switch and make the firemen into cops. Because apparently the cops are just afraid. They're afraid to do their job. Like, oh, they cry, boo-hoo, I'm afraid. So I killed them because I'm afraid. You know.
We're almost so raw. Last paragraph of that section on page 277.
I mean, we're already. I just want to ask everybody: do y'all understand we're talking about in terms of these sections?
No, I think this chapter it kept going back to the same theme all the time. I mean, I've gone through it, and she's really trying to reinforce that message of, you know,
Process.
How they actually process and get you to think the way that they want you to think. And
well, I think honestly, I think because she is a Black woman, she had to do this. She had to overdo herself because the institution would never like, you don't have enough evidence.
Yeah, no.
They do this all the time. I've experienced it. How are you gonna support that? Well, I just did. But you give us more examples. How many examples you want?
No, she put a lot of examples in there.
and so the very fact that they're even able to question these things are the reason why, you know, it's an example of after you stated your case.
Yeah. No, she was pretty clear in this this whole chapter. You know, after you go through all the evidence, I mean, how could you argue against it, you know?
Veronica, what you think? What's your overall assessment of this?
Again, I just support exactly what I just heard, because it just affirmed all that we've been reading so far. It gives you actual examples that it helped to clarify too a lot of what you're thinking about, and a lot of statements that we've made already with examples in our lives, that you can go here and the
as a
examples go back.
teacher, you and Robert are teachers. As a teacher, how reading these things affect you? Because it's like, I know you absorb this information, you know these things, and like, I know y'all with these little children, and you be like, I want to instill what I know. Like, how y'all balance those things? Like, how y'all deal with it?
It's hard. It is hard, that kind of a balancing act. Actually, being on virtual helps a lot, because at least you figure that your administrators are not really, you know, tuning in to what you're getting at, right? So you might take a little bit more, you know, leeway. But I mean, the way that we are teachers are trained and educated, I mean, it is to fall in line. It is to further, you know, indoctrinate the students we have with their own philosophies and ideologies and values, that sort of thing, and without a check. But once you know that, I mean, sometimes you have to catch your own self. For me, it's a lot of self work on my part in terms of the type of information that I am sharing with them. And you talked about things like Mother's Day. Now that I know what you're saying, right? But like, you're expected to reinforce with them that this is the way it has to be. Like, you have to think of your mother on one day. So if you don't think about them all year, on Mother's Day, you think about your mother or something. Rather than, that's not a natural thing for us, right? You know, your mother's thought of every single day, even here in this household. But the thing about it was that when they gave you that day, or when they said that you had that day, it was something that you say, well, you know, you can reinforce it, because now they're actually doing what you would have done yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting for me that they don't say Family Day, because that causes us
There's
to
a
think
family
about
day.
family.
There is.
You have a family day.
We have a family day. In
Yeah,
fact,
but come on, guys. Mother's Day versus Mother's Day versus Father's Day, which one wins?
And they have Father's Day too.
But it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not to compare.
No, they have family.
No,
And-
hold
and
on,
we-
hold
We
on,
actually,
hold
we
on,
actually
hold on.
have Family Day in the shortest, coldest month of the year,
Yeah.
February.
Yeah, but you know, when you compare Family Day, there is no real family day.
No,
There's no
Father's Day is
nobody's
every day.
nobody's thinking
Now,
about
these days are
Father's
every
Day.
day. You
Father's
should,
Day is give that dude a tie and let him shut the hell up, man. And the men, we don't even look at it like, come on, man. What you mean? I'm a father all day, man.
It's a
When
day.
it comes
honor,
to Mother's Day, it's like, and the
it's a
women
day
love it. They're like, yeah,
yeah.
give it to me. Give it to me. Ooh,
It's a honor.
love that attention. The man is like, nah.
You're just reclaiming the concepts that they grabbed from you, that they took from you.
And and see, the concept of family should be promoted much more,
Yeah.
because one is a
agree.
celebration of the mother and
Yeah.
her role and how important that is.
It's
Two,
important.
celebration of the father,
Yeah.
the importance of the role of he is, and then the importance of the kid, the new generation that is coming up and
Yeah.
becoming the adults that they should be, these divine beings that they
Mhm.
are, and manifesting.
Mhm.
Now, hey, Robert, you heard Veronica. You add your twist to it in terms of your experience as a teacher. Like, how do you even deal with it when you got kids there? You see they look like you, and you like, I want to just transfer that information.
I mean,
And I saw you shaking your head like, yeah, I can feel that.
yeah, yeah, because it resonates with me. I mean, where I'm at right now is I've been blessed enough uh to just be working. I work at institutions where they'll let me do what I do.
Mhm.
Ooh, that's
Good.
cool. That's cool.
So yeah, but even still, like it's a cultural thing in the sense that, like a kid,
Do you feel like you
come
have
to
to balance, like you got to be careful, and like how far you go with your information and your understanding when you're teaching black children and stuff like that? Or like,
I
are
mean,
you self-checking, like, let me not rock the boat this hard?
like I don't know. I honestly I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I just been kind of I've been cool enough or just blessed enough not to have to think about that. Like I make sure if I go a place, I'm like, hey, like this is the type of stuff I'm going to be talking about. And
Veronica, do
I've
you
been
have to
I do
self-check?
say so myself, I'm a
Yeah.
pretty good teacher, so like I get the job
That's some
done.
that's
But
that's tough.
but you gotta understand like where I'm at and the kids that I'm teaching, it's is different in the sense that like I understand my role and where I'm at is to kind of just drop seeds. Like I'm a say something. It's like maybe one kid out of 30 is gonna land and hit.
That's what
Everybody
you
else
want.
is might come way, way, way later, and I might not never see it, or they'll
Mhm.
come back and like, see me years later, be like, "Oh, you know what? I went off to some school or whatever, and they was talking about this, and I remembered something that you said, when we
Mhm.
was in third
I
grade
had
or something like
several
that."
I had several students and kids that I mentored that they like, man, if it wasn't for you warning me, I would have been caught. I would have been caught.
If you can get them to ask, put them in a position where they gotta ask a question,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
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 So like I'm not even trying to tell like it's some kids because you know how it is in regards to a teacher. Certain kids are just going to gravitate with you,
Mhm.
and then we gonna vibe, and I'm going to show you like this is what I'm really working
Mhm.
on. That kid,
Yeah.
and I'm always gonna have those type of relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like everybody else, it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna just kind of get you to ask this question of yourself, and
Mhm.
then maybe you come and you want to find out with me, maybe you want to discover something else, but that question, it kind of sits there, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm, mhm.
That's
Yeah,
all
I
I'm
like that. I like that
Yeah.
approach. That's a good approach.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not forceful. And you'd be surprised how much that seed lands, bro.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because really people hear, but they're not accountability. We tend to want to mute accountability. But a lot of people know that they're effing up. A lot of
Mhm.
people know this.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I just wanted to throw something in about Mother's Day and Father's Day. So the same way we talk about Kwanzaa being those 7 days over the holiday period, but really you live the Kwanzaa principles every single day. I think in our mind, the Mother's Day, Father's Day, Family Day, they're just days, but really you're living
you see
that
the
every single day.
rationalization. You see the rationalization.
But that's what we do every day.
That's the rationalization for that. That's
I'm not sure
That's
if
the
that's
best-
a good thing or a bad thing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Kwanzaa. It's not necessary. Celebrate Kwanzaa that day. Celebrate Kwanzaa again. Celebrate Kwanzaa all
year
round,
round.
man.
365.
Listen,
That's what
we
do.
know, we see how they're manipulating this, and to even argue the point is, come on, we see
No,
how
but
this is a
I
monetary
wouldn't
thing.
argue the point.
No, but we
you
do it every day. We
You
do it every day. The day is a day, but we do it every day. We celebrate all of that every single day. So,
Yeah.
but we can take
So
advantage. Like I had a friend who was disabled, but he could do everything.
The
that everybody else could
only
do.
time I will say let's have Mother's Day and Father's Day as an official thing if they give us a day off and pay us.
Sunday is a day off.
No, see.
No. I was gonna say. I was gonna say
that's that UK joint. Hold on, that's that UK stuff.
My friend who was disabled that was able to do everything an able-bodied person could do.
Eugene, did you understand my point about
wait,
the day off? Hold on, no, because
No.
you just jumped over that.
No. I started this and you jumped in. So I have one sentence. What he did, he pretended he was disabled to get what he wanted to get, but he knew he could do everything. So I think that's what we got to be smarter and say, you know what? Yes, we'll do your Mother's Day thing, but we know that we do.
That's not the same thing. Oh, sorry. No, that's like some weird. That's again, like I said, the UK thing. That falls in line to the devil advocate. That's like a degree or two off of that.
I've stopped saying that now. You keep bringing it up. I'm trying to avoid.
No, I said that's like a degree or two off of being.
Okay, but you still use the word. Okay.
Hey, Ubuntu family, are y'all there? Before we're gonna say goodbye, I want Sunshine to put her 2 cents in it. I'm gonna leave my wife alone because I know she's probably studying that she's listening. She got her classes getting harder, you know.
Okay.
She started the semester this week. So.
No, I agree with, I'm like-minded with the fact that the chapter really does use clear examples. It for me, it was kind of like only the examples in the book I could really use because I'm not fully like, I don't normally think along national things, but it's clear. It's something that once it's being talked about, I know that I've seen it. I know that I've experienced it or know somebody who's experienced it.
Can I give you a rebuttal? Because when you mentioned Donald Trump, you're talking about nationalism. So you do think it, but you're just not
putting the two
conscious that you're actually talking about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we have no way of separating ourselves from it. And so when we talk about these things, like when you're doing your ACHA stuff, there's a whole understanding of it. I think what this does, it helps you link everything together, like, and you can be able to better understand.
And reinforces it like when you think you didn't have a name for it or you didn't have a subcategory for it, or you like, okay, this belongs here, this is where this kind of activity belongs in this context, right? It's within a context, and it's easier to be aware of it and kind of navigate through it at best.
Well, that's one of the things we got to have our kids, by teaching these. And hopefully everybody is able to 2 hours a week teach their kids, like what Dr. James Small says, because at least it will give them a fighting chance to maneuver and dodge a lot of things that are very hurtful.
Yeah.
Because
I think
there are certain things that hit us
and that
There's certain things that hit
Personal.
us that is not deadly, but there are deadly things out there. Police officers shooting people.
Yeah.
You know, prisons, drug addictions, all these things. There's many obstacles, even in terms of, like, let's say if they're not doing well in school, a lot of times it's not that they're not smart. Is that there's a resistance to the propaganda.
Yeah.
So even when we look at the kids who are having trouble, try to realize, where are they having the trouble? Is it just they're being lazy, or is it that there's something in there? And now you may now be able to describe what's actually happening, and then it just, the light bulb be on the head, like, boom. Oh, I got, yeah, that's exactly how I'm feeling. And then you like, listen, you got to understand, this is this, and we need you to be at this level. And this is where it's educating our kids. You know, we need Sunday schools. We need Sunday schools. Remember, I talked about that.
We also need parents that are engaged and present, because you're assuming, by saying this is what we need to do, we're assuming that the presidents are engaged.
No, I'm not assuming anything. We need that. I'm saying we need it. Whether parents are engaged or disengaged or whatever, we just need it.
Yeah.
We
But
just
some
need it.
people, when they realize what's going
the
on,
white folks their parents are not engaged, because they run the system. They created this system. Most of them jumped into our bandwagoners. Only a few. We need like a few. Only a few created this construct. The rest jumped in the bandwagon. We assume that this is like everybody, like this is run by like 200 people in the world, and everybody else is being controlled by like 200 people.
yeah.
I mean, Jeff Bezos
Well,
and
they'll
Elon
always
Musk
be,
have more wealth than
there will always
everybody in the United States.
Sunshine, Sunshine was going to say something.
I was just gonna say, it takes all kinds to make the community, but like, I like the point that was made earlier, that, you know, while the children are in homeschool, we're able to observe better, see how they're learning, see how they're being taught, becoming aware of it. But then there's some parents who are like, oh, I can be involved, and now I can kind of assist, and like what Rai said, like, say, okay, this is where you're at, this is what's happening, that's why you feel this way. But then there's some parents who legit I have spoken to, and they're like, I can't do this. And if I had known that this was going to be a part of, you know, the way things go in terms of being a parent, I would have never become a parent, because it's just too much work. So it takes all kinds of different.
Like these people are like, they just, these people weren't born yesterday. Like, their life experience tell them what it is. That's a weird statement.
That's the reality, though. There are parents like that.
Wow.
No, listen. We're born. We're born into this stuff. Like, come on, man.
I want to pay somebody to do it. I want to pay somebody.
That part I understand, but for them not to know, like what school you went to, like what school, like you didn't know that, like
they don't want to do it. They don't want. They don't want the true responsibilities of what comes with.
And guess what?
The package.
You can't.
They're just like,
we only need 10%. We only need 10%, because this is not like everybody gonna embrace it. There's people
10% if we gonna do something like they doing, but like, I don't know, the stuff that I got in my head is going to take more than 10%.
What you mean, like this 10%?
I'm going gun ho for my profession. It's about teachers. At least what helped me in particular, like, born and raised Christian, but one thing that really helped me understand Christianity more, or the Bible more, was reading more about Bantu culture, and like how like everybody, like every teacher or every parent is a teacher. Like that's like almost like your first profession. And like create the type of society that at least
when I'm saying 10%, I'm talking about to create something of our own. You don't.
I get what you said.
it's
I'm
not
just saying
what
it takes.
once you, because you need the example, right? 10% could give you the example, and what happens? Everybody else falls into the bandwagon.
Yeah.
You
If it's
need a
working,
you need a
if it's working.
Bandwagon.
if
I'm in
you
10% out there because I put in the work and the effort, and I need everybody else to put in that work
and
that effort.
you'll be that 10%. You'll be part of that 10%. There's people that
it's not
there's
just
people
10%, right? It's a
there's,
community.
you're not gonna get 100%.
They
I
won't. They
think
won't
we
get.
saying
You're
the
not
same.
gonna
I
get
think
100%.
thing.
What I'm
But
saying is to
my
push.
only
Hold on. One person talking. We can't hear anything.
What I'm saying is this: to push things forward, we need at least 10 to be able to achieve some type of inertia. We need a 10%. We need a 10% of the population to recognize what is happening and to really try to push forward. Once that happens, it starts the ball rolling. People be then because we're not going to educate people all at once. We got it needs to be hundreds of years forward. We need to be like, okay, we start here and we start. It's
Yeah.
like pushing the ball in the hill. You push the ball, and it just gathers momentum, which is the population increases. All of a sudden, people start looking at this culture, African, us being African, accepting African, eliminating anti-Africanism, and being like feeling like they could be themselves, and being able to recreate the schools, like you getting rid of this, like we can't have our own schools and stuff like that. Even in terms of now, we're making too much money to not be having our own stuff. Even now.
Okay, Robert, what you were saying? You were saying something
Oh,
before?
I feel like we probably saying about this thing. I'm like when I hear 10%, like in my head I got an image of like the pyramid, and you got the 10% that's at the top. I would like, I guess, let's say the exact same thing, but I guess upside down pyramid, in the sense that like if you had like my issue, well, I'm not going, yeah, I guess I could say my issue. My issue right now is, okay, if I'm the only teacher in the school that's like doing this, then like it's kind of, I gotta fight against, it's not efficient. Like what I'm doing is not efficient. Like it's gonna catch it when a kid catches it. He probably gonna have a kid on his own and then have to really start asking these questions. But if I had like other teachers, you know what I'm saying? If I had like 5 or 6 that really created a type of cultural environment, and then we pushing out 30 kids like every graduating class, all these kids are dope.
Which
What
is performing the school.
Hang
I'm
on.
in regards to that 10, when I hear this, just I'm not saying you saying this, I'm saying when I hear 10%, I hear about like this guy's really smart, so this guy went off to this business and this did like got all this money, and then he came back. And just in my personal history,
let me ask
and
you.
then
Hold on. Let him finish, Rob. Let him finish, Rob.
No, I'm just
and
trying
I
to
will also
understand it.
say
Are you looking at it like the talented tens of the boys? Are you looking at it
that,
from
that
that end?
that's why
Because
I'm
that's
not
not the
saying you're
angle I'm
saying that.
coming from. That's not the angle I'm
I
coming from.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're saying this, but I'm saying like those
No,
people.
I understand what you're
It's
saying. I just needed to know
okay.
if that was the what you were referring to, you know.
Mhm.
Because really, when you talk about, let's say 10% of teachers, right? How many teachers are in Baltimore?
That's. I mean, it's a lot of teachers, but like, what do you mean
Like
when
if
you
you
say that?
get 10% of the teachers who's down to do this, y'all can literally create a school, because y'all have the y'all have the what is required to create a school.
Yep,
Like
that's
if let's say you have a black teachers association, and y'all meet up every month. And let's say there's 100 teachers. 10 of those teachers could literally start a school, even if it's online. And I actually was trying to do this with a friend of mine, but I could not. Things happen with the stuff that I was doing, and it could,
What
it could
kind of levels
develop
are you thinking
into,
about?
huh?
What kind of levels are you thinking? High school? You thinking elementary school?
These 10 teachers could discuss whatever level, but
We're on the
me,
same track. That's my
we
whole. That's my
we
thing.
dealing with them
What age
when
group?
they're rational, more rational,
But that's
Yeah.
why I got in
you
education.
know.
So I.
I think
What-
Veronica,
what age group?
Veronica might have a comment about what more rational age group would be.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm saying. That's why I
yeah.
said,
So Veronica, I know what's in your head. So I just want you to clarify what your thinking
You know
is.
what's in her head.
I know what's in her head. Go on.
Started the
you know
Afrocentric-
what in her head.
Go on. Go on.
we started an Afrocentric school here in Canada. And actually, that's where I really teach, is at the Afrocentric school. I'm just doing
Mhm.
virtual school now in this setting. But we came across a lot of problems, a lot of issues with the fact that as an Afrocentric school, first they wanted to start it in the middle, like the high school.
Mhm.
But the thing about it was that as they started it in the high school, okay, it was more like a program, because if you're in the Canadian system, right, then you have to go to higher education too. So that means then that you got to go make sure that the students coming out of your school has that next step option, right, as to where they're going to go from there. What we have to do is have our institution starting from the elementary level. That's where we have the
Yeah.
power on those children.
Mhm.
The elementary level is where you have to begin. And then with the elementary level, you have to have teachers that you know can teach them, because that's the next part. And that's a very important part. We
Mhm.
had the school, but didn't have teachers who could teach the children, right? And then we ended up probably causing some problems that, added to them as if they were in a regular, ordinary school being, miseducated. Let's say that. And
Mhm.
that's why I say the training of teachers are important too. How
Well,
do the
well,
teachers teach? Like, there's so much
I've seen
factors you gotta
I've
care.
seen models that have worked, right? There's models in the United States that have worked
Yeah,
where
there
the
you're a little
Nation of
ahead of.
Islam,
You're
you
definitely ahead of.
have the
Mhm.
the young guy Q Butter, he's doing all ages.
Mhm.
And so, in terms of what you're saying, is preferably beginning from all ages, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And with this technology, it is, I think, is even more easier. You
Mhm.
can now say, okay, let's say Robert start his organization and he got 10 teachers with him.
Mhm.
He can actually they could go out and actually recruit other teachers from other places, just like Phoenix and all these other colleges do, brings the teacher in virtually, right?
Mhm.
And really, if you could develop that type of thing, you can sell that. And this is something like, it's there for the picking. Whoever could solve that, gonna
Yeah.
make it's gonna become wealthy, but it's also wealthy in the fact that it's gonna help us.
I still think we have to establish our own educational links in terms of how our children progress, because they catch them somewhere. They catch them. And then we got to be able to make sure that when we're also providing opportunities for them when they finish school, like where they're going to go from there, like we don't somehow put everything in place.
Yeah,
And
but I think at that point, right?
That's the teaching thing.
I think the teachers are taking way too much. This is where you can recruit
We haven't taught ourselves how to teach. Like even with this, like this book is great, but this book is good for understanding Europeans. Like after you read this whole book, you still got to figure out a whole framework for how to figure out what is Afrocentric stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that's the teacher's job. The teacher got to come up with a whole different framework of how you're supposed to understand and see stuff, and then translate that to another person. That's like that's another level. But you get to that level like by generating more teachers. You know what I'm saying? So I go into my classroom and I be trying to find kids.
We got to get rid of also the idea of what a teacher is, right? Because some of this stuff, like
that's what I'm saying. But that's
we have teachers, like whenever you go into a program like the ACHA, that's a teachable environment, and people are teaching there that are not necessarily quote unquote considered teachers, right?
One.
You know,
the other one is.
No, I'm saying there's people like I was in programs where people are trying to do work and they were able to touch children's lives in a positive way. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to consolidate, because everybody's doing so many things all at once and reinventing the wheel all the time.
But I just want to say to Robert, just in case Robert disappears, I heard you say something, and I have to reinforce that what you're doing is what you should be doing. You said you can read the book, but you still have to go and do the work to do the work, right?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. But you said you're still learning. I think every day we are learning something new, and even this book club is going to
engaging with people who are trying to do the same thing is very important.
That's important.
And having elders and mentors that are talking about these things are very important. This doesn't come, and so you and understanding when you came at this, right? When you realized, I'm an African in America, right? Once you understand those things, and you're already gonna see being spiritual, for example, because the book actually tells you how to be African. This is where I'm gonna disagree with you. To be African, where's the book? We're gonna look at the chart. Look at this chart. Thinking being minus spiritual being equals the knower. No. Thinking being plus the spiritual being is an African. Reality minus meaningfulness. No. Reality with meaningfulness is African. Because the African is just the human being that hasn't been tainted by this asili. That's the African. Here goes another one. Phenomenon or experience minus interconnectiveness. No, you understanding the interconnectedness of things. That's an African. That's the indigenous Homo sapiens mind. Here's another one. European controlled ego plus detachment. No, don't view yourself detached. That's the African. That's why we view ourselves as a whole, a family. That's why we created concepts like Pan-Africanism. We're not detached from the universe. We're not detached from nothing. That's the African. From there, everything else manifests. So now we emanate and we create things that we hold a value. I like art. You may like science. So-and-so may like sewing, wood carving, but as long as you maintain, you're not out of your mind, you're African, right? So it's not that hard. The book tells you what it is.
That's a perfect segue.
Yeah. And I do
see,
that we
I understand I'm older than you, and this is why you need a brother like me. You're a young brother who
You talking to me, right? Or you talking to
listen, you're the baby. You're the baby. You're the baby. Brother, you are the most important person here right now.
Yep, I agree with that.
You understand the mission that you're in. You're the most important, being the youngest. So if I could just transfer all my knowledge to you, I would have. Because
Your
I'm
head
not
would
trying to
explode, Robert.
I would not try to hold. No, I mean, on a serious level, Robert, on a serious level, we can't, like, some people, they get knowledge and they want to keep it to themselves, and they don't share and stuff like. That's not who we are. I'm trying to pass. The book club is formed to try to pass a level of understanding. I realize people do not think so much. They're not deep thinkers. And that's one of the problems. Africans are deep thinkers. So you're the most important person here because you're the youngest. We're trying to, if anybody should get this, you should be able to get it because you're not even half of your life. Everybody else is like 3/4 of their life already.
You guys have great skin, let me say.
It's the camera.
I know, guys. He's cut our life short already. Oh my God. How much do we have left, Ra? What's the number? Give me a number. So I can do all the things that I can do, my bucket list before I go.
I just wanted to say something. I would just want to say that in effect, everybody here is a teacher. We all teach.
Yes.
Yes. And the point is that not everybody knows how to channel what they know so that they can pass it on to somebody else. However, we learn, even if we are learning or we get something from somebody that's negative, it's a teaching for us. So I think that like when you had mentioned about that, and I just checked myself and I said, you know what, you talked about the 10, get 10 teachers that you could start something with them. And I remember going through that experience with the school, and I thought to myself, you said an interesting thing there. For the teachers that we have that couldn't do it, boy, did we learn something. We learned a lot from that. And it really did help the next time we have to think about how we want to really organize our school. And even the children who had those teachers that couldn't really express to them or bring them to the levels that we wanted.
And I like that because it's a process. We think we want to take a pill on 10%. When I say 10%, I'm not talking about they're like, oh, let's just get 10% people. No, 10% of idiots is a bunch of idiots. That's all it is. Right? Yeah. You need 10% of like people with the heart, with the proper attention. Just because somebody knows a lot doesn't mean they're good.
They know how to do it. It's true.
Yeah. So you need the heart and all that. If you could get 10%, trust me, those 10% will ignite and create like a blaze. It will transform the culture. Man, one person had, like, the Buddha changed the culture. There's a whole bunch of examples of like one person and then it just grows. The thing is I think we view things harder than what it really is, right? We actually swipe ourselves, we trip ourselves up before we really start. And we get discouraged because we don't understand the process of creation. And if we actually understand our history from time immemorial, we will have a better understanding of what creation is. And just to tell you, Kemet has a good process. They understand. As a matter of fact, that book of Ma'at that I gave you, read that. Read that.
by chance, because I don't always be in front of a computer, where I can get like a paper copy, or maybe
Yeah, it's
maybe
called
I'll try.
Amazon. Amazon, or you just
What's it-
print it out as your job.
Okay. All right. Shem Hotep,
Listen,
I gotta go.
Robert, if you need anything, let me know. Let's close
Chapter
out the
5 next
meeting.
week. Chapter 5,
The whole
Yeah,
thing?
chapter 5.
like 20 pages.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Have a good night,
Wherever,
everybody.
wherever half
Bye,
is, wherever half
sunshine.
is.
See
It's
ya.
only 20 pages. It's 20 pages.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right.
Good night.
All right.